the debate a little earlier today with none other, the New York Post and Daily Telegraph's Miranda Devine. To have you with us. Now, tell us a little bit about the way the debate was run, the way it was hosted, the rules, the way the rules were kept to. Were you happy with the way this second debate was run?
Look, I thought it was a lot better, and I think really that's down to the fact that the moderator, Kristen Welker, did a really good job. She was very even-handed. Unlike Chris Wallace in the first debate, she wasn't obviously taking sides one way or the other, and she kept it substantive. She was polite, but also I think she was helped by the fact that Donald Trump realised, I know he was told by Rudy Giuliani and Chris Christie, who were his sort of debate preppers, after he finished that first debate, that, come and have a look at the tape, because actually you interrupted Joe Biden so much and you allowed him to look better than he should have because you didn't give him enough rope to hang himself. So I think Donald Trump then, according to Rudy Giuliani, actually watched that tape and then agreed with them, and I think he was resolved, no matter what, that he was going to allow Joe Biden to talk, because the more Joe Biden talks, the more sort of waffly he looks and the more low energy. And I think that you really saw that tonight. You saw the contrast between the two men, one full of energy, full of beans, and the other one quite tired and sort of searching for words. OK, let's go to the first debate about COVID-19, what Trump didn't do, etc. Now, this is where they both drew on their old statements on COVID-19. Let's have a look.
This is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no plan.
We're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now.
I thought Trump got points for that because it is a dangerous prospect to have someone like Joe Biden as president of the country if he was against closing down a border to China in those circumstances.
Yes, look, I think this is where Trump's at his strongest, because he did close the border down on the 31st of January, which was before anyone really had come to grips with how dangerous this virus was. He stopped anyone from China coming in, and he did an unprecedented thing, which was to actually mandatory quarantine for American citizens arriving from that province. Yeah. So, and at the time, he was really pilloried by a lot of Democrats, including and especially Joe Biden, who called him a xenophobe. And I thought it was interesting in that grab that you just played that Joe Biden was denying that he said that. But I mean, I was here. I saw it in real time. I wrote a column about it. He absolutely called him a xenophobe. Yeah. And others in the Democratic Party went further.
We've had these debates in Australia about how far lockdown should go. A great deal of criticism levelled at states like Queensland and WA. And then that's where the debate got to as well. And I think this was full points to Donald Trump. This is where he talks about the fact that you can't lock down the joint forever.
We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself.
We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but when they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely.
I think Trump was on safe ground because at the end of the day, throughout this pandemic, the best leaders juggle both the economy and the virus, not just one.
Yes, you're spot on, Chris. And I think what you're seeing from Donald Trump is optimism and hope. And he embodies that because he actually had COVID-19, so did his wife, so did his son, and he's in that high-risk group, 74 years old. So it is a hopeful and optimistic time. And then you've got Joe Biden saying, oh, we're in for a long, dark winter. The other thing that Joe Biden does is he talks about locking up the economy again on the advice of experts. There is no way that America is going to put up with that again. No way. In America, they're much less docile than the Victorians who put up with what they have, absolute hell. And as you said, and as Donald Trump said, the mental health problems that come out of these extensive lockdowns are worse. As Donald Trump said, I think you don't want the cure to be worse than the disease.
Yeah. I want to play you something very quickly. This is Joe Biden talking about how he's representing everyone. He doesn't talk in terms of blue states and red states until he then says this.
I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly.
I thought, Miranda, that was the foot and mouth disease of the debate.
Yeah, it so was, honestly. It's really typical of Joe Biden. He does say one thing and then he says the opposite later. He's the biggest flip-flopper, and there you saw him flip-flopping, and he doesn't even remember that he flip-flopped. That was a classic Joe Biden moment. And look, I think overall, you had Donald Trump, who restrained himself, was much more presidential this time than he was in that first debate, which I think backfired on him somewhat. And it worked for him because he managed to focus in on a couple of important points. And I think the most important point that he focused in on was to portray Joe Biden as a typical politician and, you know, a failed institutional 47-year politician who's now saying after 8 years as vice president, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to fix that. Well, as Donald Trump said, why didn't you fix it then? Yeah. And really, Joe Biden has no comeback except for a few smirks. Yeah,
exactly. He said that on many occasions, and I thought that he got through and made his point quite well. On the minimum wage, Joe Biden has started to talk about how he would agree with the minimum wage, but then Trump made an appropriate point that only someone who runs business would know. This is the grab.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out, too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
But I want to get
we have to help our small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very recently.
We have to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
Look, I think he was very effective there. And in fact, throughout the debate, he talked about small business people. One of the most effective moments was when he talked about my beautiful New York. He said it's just a ghost town now. People are leaving. Businesses are shut. Those small businesses, they can't deal with these restrictions and these regulations that you're trying to place on them. And one of those is to raise the minimum wage. You know, you've got these small restaurants in New York that have gone out of business. I mean, their margins are so tiny. It's sort of unrealistic pie-in-the-sky thinking from Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who's a businessman who's had to actually do payroll. You know, he's had to worry about how he's going to make payroll at the end of the month. So I think, you know, in a lot of ways tonight, you saw a common sense businessman up against a ivory tower protected insider from Washington.
Miranda Devine, great analysis. Thank you very much for your insight, and we'll read all about it tomorrow in the Daily Telegraph.
All right, moving overseas now, and US President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden have made their final pitches to the country on the debate stage. For more on this, I spoke to Sky News anchor Paul Murray earlier. Paul Murray, great to see you tonight on Sky News across Australia. What did you think of today's US presidential debate?
G'day, Gleeso. G'day, everyone who's watching right now. Happy Friday to everyone. Look, way better debate than the first one because the bumper bars that they put up, like when you go 10-pin bowling for the first time or you try to teach your kids, it meant that they knew there were limits, right? They knew your 2 minutes, your 2 minutes. They got plenty of chances to be able to get shots in on each other. Look, you all know I love the orange man, so I'm obviously looking for the best for Trump, right? I think he got, look, there's no knockouts, but there never is in these things. But I think if it's a boxing match, it's on points, and on points it's Trump. Not just because I like Trump, but because Biden said 3 things that were frightening or ludicrous or just a little bit weird, right? Number one, in terms of the, as he, yeah, I hate this, the number one, the number two, that's, you know, how Biden goes on with that. Anyway, during the coronavirus discussion, Biden said that an extra 200,000 people will die before the end of the year. Now, 200,000 people have already died, but so into the fear of coronavirus is that, you know, you can't stack the fear high enough. Like, it's idiots on Twitter who think that Donald Trump is directly responsible for 200,000 people dying in the United States. And the truth is that obviously, you know, it's a weird thing to say that it either is a draw or a positive, but most people's experience, 9 million people's experience in, 8 million people's experience in the US with coronavirus is that they had it, it was unpleasant, but they got over it. And that's what Trump had. There are 320 million people in the country, and they are tired of the shutdowns, the lockdowns. The economy is the #1 issue at this election. Trump is saying the key to getting the economy back is to reopen cities, and that's really important. The second very strange moment was when Joe Biden said that, yes, I'm for transitioning away from the fossil fuel industry and do it sooner rather than later. Put simply, there's more than 9 million oil jobs. Gas in America is the cheapest it's been in decades because they don't have to worry about the Saudis anymore. And finally, Joe Biden actually brought up Adolf Hitler. And as we all know, the first person to bring up Hitler or the Nazis loses a debate.
Paul Murray, do you still think it's going to be close, that Trump may get over the line?
Oh, look, we had a big data bloke on from Griffith University. He's not a politics guy, he's a data guy. And what he does is that, you know, he uses his big supercomputer, thank you very much, taxpayer, to be able to go and have a look at everything that's being said on the internet by real people in America. Now, he did the same before Brexit, and he predicted Brexit would happen. He did the same before 2016 and predicted Trump would win in 2016. He did the same here in Australia last year and said Morrison would win. Now, he's going to press refresh again next week, but he pressed refresh recently and he says Trump is looking like he'll get 270 to 280 electoral votes. That means he might hold on to places like Pennsylvania and he would be returned for another 4 years. But, you know, I'm a person who, look, as a fat bloke, I understand about cookies and crumbs, right? So if all of the data is correct to this point, then Biden wins and is going to win reasonably strong. However, if he doesn't, rather than the world going, how did this happen? I'm telling people about what the crumbs are. And the crumbs are the data that has been right how many times before when the polls were wrong? A poll that says 56% of Americans feel they're better off than they were 4 years ago, and significant issues around either the propriety of Joe Biden, his fitness for office, or is he the lipstick on a lefty pig that none of them would vote for, and he's really the front man of a pretty radical group of people. When you think 56% of the country likes where they've been in the past 4 years, do they want to gamble that on Bernie and the crazies on Twitter?